What you doing in my bushes? Rufus is a 2025 clearly low budget anthology movie, kind of a weird horror comedy hybrid, I would say. And I would best describe this as a kind of madness simulator. It's one of the most bizarre films I think I've watched this year, and certainly makes an impression. Rufus refers to our kind of character who is this storyteller who we see kind of almost narrating various different kind of stories. It's also an acronym for the extended title for this movie, which has an F-bomb in it, so I won't say it on here. And yeah, so Rufus is this guy who sort of tells these sort of stories, and they're sort of horror tinged, but they're all like really weird. This is like an art house horror movie on a B-movie acid trip, is the best way I would describe it. The only kind of recognisable face for me in this movie was Monique Parent, who's in probably the smallest segment of the movie, and bizarre. So, you know, we have a story. The first story that we told is probably the most logical, and that goes, you know, when you hear this, you'll think, what? And this is about this guy who is some sort of coroner, and he ends up kind of getting, he's drinking on the job, and he ends up kind of mixing blood with one of these kind of bodies of this murderer, and this causes him to kind of have these kind of involuntary spasms, and almost like he's somewhat possessed at the same time as, you know, as having control, like his arm is doing its own thing, and he gets him in various kind of trouble. And that's the most kind of sensible movie out of this lot. We've got one where we've got a kind of theatre production that, you know, has this kind of new sort of recruit, this new actress, and they all appear to be in some type of strange cult that do these kind of weird stuff. We've got the longest one, which is actually in multiple parts, is on this hospital which has got these kind of comatose patients, and this is like a wall of noise, this movie, this particular one, and it's just people talking constantly, and it's just these patients sort of have this sort of telepathy, I suppose, where they're sort of talking to one another. And then we got the Monique Parent one where she's in this couple, and they have a strange little third character, shall we say, in the apartment. This is like a really bizarre film. I mean, every one is like weird, and it's, what can we say that works? Let's just start here, right? So if you just want weird, bizarre acid trip of a movie, welcome to Rufus. I can legitimately see there may well be an audience for this, if I'm honest. And apparently it's won some awards. I can only think these people didn't know what they were watching, and go, yeah, that was clearly art. But you know, if you want the bizarre, then check it out, because it really is. And I'll give credit where credit is due. I mean, there's so many anthology movies around. You know, it's certainly this one's modus operandi was to have the most strange sort of stories culminated, and you know, it succeeds in that. And it honestly does feel like, what's it like being a crazy person? Here's your answer. Watch this movie and you'll kind of know. So there's certainly that to it. And I guess you could also say in the same breath, it's quite original in many respects. Certainly here, the stories that are being told are not really ones that are just rehashes of other stories that you've kind of seen before. It's just a real mind trip. But what doesn't work, it's just like I've said. I mean, the longest movie is just like people talking constantly, either through actual talking or through telepathy, and it's just there's no breaking it. The edit, this really needed to have gaps. I mean, it's like when you do a comedy routine. Part of like stand-up comedy is timing. And you know, you have gaps and you wait and stuff, and you're kind of building. And this movie has like none of that. It is just edited to an inch of its life, and it's you know, there's barely a second goes where the next person isn't talking in nearly all of these sort of stories. So this feels like it's been massively overly edited, and it needed to have more of a breathing space between sort of sequences and scenes and even stories, because you just feel like it's just constant. This is like someone constantly going blah 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 blah, you know, in your ear, and it you know, it's like that. How it makes you feel. I mean, if that was to someone were to do that for an hour and a half, that's kind of how this movie makes you feel. If I'm completely honest with you, it is absolutely kind of like you know, spiraling into insanity. The movie is clearly very low budget. It's not really exactly an effects spectacle by any means. And when we do sort of see the more overt weird stuff happening, it's done on a very kind of like low budget effect. And so if you're not really interested in sort of, you know, low budget stuff, then this isn't going to change your mind. I mean, if you're really interested in sort of clear narratives, then this also isn't really for you. It is just kind of like an experience more than it is a story. You know, it's lots of kind of like strange and obscure things on screen happening in fast succession with a lot of noise, a lot of kind of like dialogue going over the kind of the top of it. Honestly, I have to be honest with you, I was glad when this was over. It was, for me, not a film I particularly enjoyed. Like I said, maybe I can see there's an audience for this, and if you just want something completely off the wall, then you may want to check it out. I'll give it a 3 out of 10 for an originality standpoint here, but for an entertainment or narrative standpoint, not for me. 3 out of 10. What were your thoughts? If you've seen it, let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.